Well, hello, that's me again. Today is January 7th, 2025, and this is Tuesday. And let's start with something which is really funny, honestly. And actually, it's not only funny, it's also nauseating in the same time. And we will start with this piece from yesterday from Washington Post. And here is the editorial board. I don't know if it's makes any difference if the bunch of the nincompoops from this rag, you know, are operating and writing something as the combined editorial board, or are they capable of thinking for themselves separately? But the only reason I present it here, because obviously Washington Post passes for the one of the most important nation's newspapers, and yeah, some people say it's CIA basically outlet. I don't know, somebody will know better than me about all those, associations with US mainstream media. But however, even these guys, they admit that Ukraine risks losing the war, and Trump imposed bad deal would be even worse. And they talk about the settlement that dismembers Ukraine and rewards Putin will undermine US credibility. And here is the point. And let's read that these guys live in delusion, which is expected. No people in Washington who revolves around any kind of levers of power they have any clue about the real war. And as you saw yourself in the beginning, this is how Terezk looks like, and we will talk about it. This is the real war. This is nothing that United States has experience with. And so they talk about the next week will just determine whether Ukraine can continue to exist as a sovereign state within its pre-invasion borders, or close to them with full security guarantees for its citizens, or whether the Russian President Vladimir Putin will be rewarded and emboldened in his war of territorial expansion. Here's the lie, absolutely, but hey, that's Washington Post and that's American mainstream media. What do you expect from them? And so they come and press, continue to press with this idiotic term that how this conflict is resolved will have ramifications far beyond Ukraine, belying the notion expressed by some, including American isolationists. There are no isolationists in the United States. They lie here too. But that this is Europe's problem. At stake is the credibility of the United States at the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So this credibility thing, of which, by the way, some real realists, so to speak, such as like Mr. Daniel Larison, right, that it's a pathetic argument. First, we need to start today at January 7th, 2025, and we have to admit to ourselves that the United States doesn't have any credibility left. Because credibility, in order for you to have credibility, you need to have military power. I'm sorry to say this, but if anybody who really thinks that this works somehow differently, I have a breach to sell you. Because modern military power is the first derivative of the mighty, multifaceted, complex economy. And United States is not continental power. And if you want to actually go and take a look again how the power is formed, here's again the wonderful book by none other than Dr. Fadilama, Why the West Can't Win, where he explains in a wonderful writing style and with a lot of data why all this thing is delusion. And let's take a look at essentially how this delusion have been born, including the American military mythology, which for some reason believed that United States is the it thing. As I already stated many times in my life, that greatness, American greatness, didn't come through military. America is great and always was great when, as one of the people on my discussion boards in my blog stated beautifully, when America was behind the plow. America's industrial, managerial genius, engineering genius, I mean, they are all valid things. They are all incredible achievements of humanity, and the United States contributed mightily. But militarily, with the exception of this magnificent performance by the United States Navy, Militarily, United States never was continental state. It never understood what continental warfare of scale is, and especially in the last 80 years. That is why United States and its historians, court historians, they rewrote the whole history of the World War II. That's the only way they can do it. And here is the example. If you go back, well, 8 years now, when I wrote those lines, if you go to my first book, let me show you something about American military mythology. Here's the, it basically tells you their attitude. And this was in 2017 when I was writing, and that Carl Sandburg, in what is considered arguably the best biography of Abraham Lincoln, noted when describing the realities of American military thought during the Civil War, American Civil War, of course. Southern West Pointers saw the North as having realized no Napoleon in McClellan, no Wellington in Hooker or Burnside. The North had its own Suvorov, however. They told Mr. Chestnut it would be just like Yankees to find a merciless primitive warrior patterned after a Russian tradition. Grant in their right man, a bull-headed Suvorov. Well, here is the attitude. You have to understand that United States, even during the Civil War, which of course, I mean, from the dialectical point of view, if you wish, was the first full-fledged industrial war of the, well, of the history. Reality is, of course, that basically the U.S. Army and U.S. generals, they were provincial generals. And obviously people who were studying the history, already then they didn't understand what they were studying, because they were, of course, gravitating towards the mythology of Napoleon, which was defeated by Russians, of course. And you know, when people talk about Suvorov, they should know that, of course, at that time, which they didn't, they were, you know, imbuing this Napoleon's mythology. But the point is that Suvorov was a generalissimo who never lost a battle, and be that against anybody, including the European powers. But yeah, for some reason they believed all this garbage about Napoleon scrambling to victory. That was his tactical genius. He was a not very good strategist, Napoleon. He was primarily tactical genius, and basically that tells you how incompetent and how illiterate, if not ignorant, those they were. And United States military will stay ignorant until the World War II, and even then, well, if we go through the history of the World War II and U.S. Army basically facing for the first time, I mean, the real enemy, and even then, until 1944, primarily the secondary theaters of operations, you will understand, for example, why I mean, absolutely outstanding mediocrity. I know it's basically, you know, a contradictory statement, you know, so to speak, and but that is the whole point. Such mediocrity as Patton was trying to, you know, pretend that he was somehow the French general and, you know, in some other life, you know, because he believed in reincarnation, and he was the French general in Napoleon's army. Well, I have news for him. I always had, obviously. He is not with us anymore, but he is, together with historians like Karl Diestek, who wrote about him as the genius for war, this famous book, which he never disclosed what was so genius about Patton, but he certainly came up with this famous statement when he was talking about this at PBS, I believe, or C-SPAN, that Patton early understood the significance of the roads. Oh, color me surprised. Next time we know that Patton also earlier understood the significance of breathing the air, and that the sky is blue and the water is wet. But this is the type of people who obviously never studied real military history, and I mean, Russian military history dwarfs anything what the United States ever did on the ground, and even in the air, if we continue to think about it. And when you look at this, you have these people who coming up and they just talk about credibility. Dudes, for want to have credibility, you have to perform. You have to win wars. You have to really get in and win the campaign. They didn't. So show me any American general today and in the last 30 years, who, apart from beating this third-rate, semi-literate Saddam's army, show me where what did you win at all? Afghanistan? Oh, we go further. Vietnam? Going further down the back there is what? Korea? Show me the money. Show me the credit history. So, but yeah, some people still think that Tchaikovsky wrote his overture, 1812 overture, because of the American American War of 1812. It had nothing to do with America. Nobody cared about America at that time. And so militarily, that's what it is. And then when we look at actually what is shown in the beginning here, and what Terezk is, let's take a look at all those, credibility issues, of which Washington Post and its editorial board of obviously nincompoops who wouldn't know the first thing about real warfare talk about. And here is what we have. And these are from yesterday. As you can see yourself, yeah, we still can, well, we already, long above the 1 million casualties for armed forces of Ukraine, and just yesterday more than 2,000, well, essentially killed. And there is a lot of just destruction happening, so if you take a look attentively at what is happening in Terezk, which is shown in the beginning, here you are. This is your Terezk. Russians control a lot of it, and it will fall, or Russians liberate it rather, very soon. And as you saw yourself, every single building. This is how, that was the idea of Pentagon and British guys who were planning this, that, oh yeah, let's make the stronghold out of every single building, out of every single, whatever the structure, industrial structure, and yeah, that will be what should, basically slow down Russians. But Russians were not rushing, if you wish. And now when time has come and the armed forces of Ukraine is completely depleted, now it's time to move. And you see these smaller arrows everywhere. Let's go to Pokrovsk area. Let's take a look what they have there. As you can see yourself also, everywhere there are all those arrows, everywhere, literally the whole front is moving. And as you can see yourself, there is already one of the roads have been cut and the other is about to be cut, and after that Pokrovsk will be bypassed. And here is what is the most important thing, which comes from the report of the Russian Ministry of Defense yesterday. Look at this. This is for the first time which will be used in, well, basically almost 3 years. And they explain what happened with the when Russia liberated Kurakhove. If people do not understand the scale of this, and I understand for average American lay person, it is difficult to even grasp that you have right now on the Ukrainian side more than 1 million killed, about 2 million maimed and wounded and what have you. These numbers are beyond comprehension of the, American general public, and well, Europeans too, but Europeans are even more brainwashed than Americans. And here we have, in total, to hold Kurakhove, the command of the armed forces of Ukraine concentrated 26 battalions with a total number of over 15,000 personnel. As a result of professional actions of the Russian troops during the liberation of Kurakhove, the enemy lost 80% of its personnel, more than 12,000 people, about 3,000 units of various weapons and military equipment, including 40 tanks and other armored combat vehicles. And look what it actually tells you. This is most important. Read attentively. After the capture of Kurakhove, Russian troops entered the operational space. This is the first time in 3 years when Russian Defense Ministry uses this. In reality, it sounds like оперативный простор, which is literally translate not really operational space, but operational expanse. And the definition of the operational expanse, or as it used here, space, is that you move your troops and you have no defenses in front of you. That means you broke through, and that opened the road on number of the operational axes, and Russians will be reaching Dnieper very soon. And so if you take a look at this, and especially the issue of the what already have been discussed here of the credibility, well, in order, as already stated, in order for you to have credibility, you have to be able to perform. You have to be able to show something for it and say, hey, I'm good at it here. And well, when you look attentively at, for example, what Toretsk looks like, what Kurakhove looks like. Let's take a look at Kurakhove. So if you, it's not just Kurakhove if you think so. Reality is, if you take a look at the map, and Kurakhove have been liberated, you can see yourself other. Kurakhevka, you have Zaryanne, you have Girnik, you have all kinds of those non-stop, urban environments, all of which have been made, well, actually into fortresses. Well, guess what? If you take a look at it, you have many miles, many square miles of these strongholds. They have been overcome with the devastating, losses for the armed forces of Ukraine and their NATO so-called, volunteers. And if you think that credibility is something which to be thrown easily around, well, here it is. Let's take a look at the Kursk data. Here's the 2 days ago, the Ministry of Defense revealed the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine in the Kursk region per day, and they actually total number of the losses of the Ukraine in Kursk area alone is, in total, during the hostilities of the Kursk direction, the enemy lost over 49,000 servicemen, 273 tanks, 209 infantry fighting vehicles, 150 armored personnel carriers, and much more. In other words, basically NATO, well, now I hear, and believe me, including among my friends, I'm not going to be elaborating on this, saying that, oh, this British planned this. Yeah, I know British planned this, but Americans also planned this disaster, and guess what? What they did, they managed to do what they usually do. They killed the whole damn combined arms army. It's essentially, they killed their 4 divisions, easily. So it's 2 cores. And when you look at this data, how many people understand the scale of those things? How many people understand the, grand strategic picture here? Well, very few. And that's why actually I'm coming here, and trying to explain. Not so much comment, but as trying to explain and give some fundamentals for people to understand this. And if you look attentively at this adventurism in Kursk, we have just yesterday, Russian defense minister says, yeah, Kiev latest, they attacked, and we'll talk about this, in the force of 2 battalion tactical groups. It's nothing. It's a tactical, it's a tactical action, essentially. But of course, it was presented as some kind of offensive. No, it's not offensive. We'll talk about it. But Kiev's latest advance, if there was no advance into the country, has been stopped. Russian forces have crushed Kiev's latest attempt to expand its military foothold in the Kursk region, destroying 10 Ukrainian tanks along with several other armored vehicles in the counteroffensive. Well, there was no counteroffensive. What happened, and you have to be very much clear about what is being talked about, but here are the results, for example, of this well, basically attack of armed forces of Ukraine. In Dmitry Simes Jr. correctly states, Russian troops are destroying Ukrainian armor like shooting fish in a barrel, which is absolutely correct. And why it is happening so, you will not find the proper, basically operationally and tactically described moment, apart from this, yeah, there's nauseating talks of those fanboys about, oh yeah, if they had active reactive armor, or they had this and that. No, it doesn't work like this. I will explain again why shortly. And so when you basically put this whole picture together. Well, guess what? I already wrote about this guy, and yeah, well, remember this? Yeah, this is the guy who actually stated that Challenger tanks will just absolutely, just absolutely intimidate Russian recruits who are not professionals, and they will just advance, and Moscow will fall to British tanks. But evidently, this guy yesterday writes that the Ukraine is humiliating Putin at the worst possible moment. I don't know what kind of possible moment he's talking about, but this Mr. Hamish de Breton Gordon, no less, he talks about that New Year brings rather more hope to President Zelensky than Vladimir Putin, I judge. Well, we know how he judged, and as it turned out, the guy with this CV, here it is, he attended Cambridge School and has a degree in agriculture from the University of Reading, and he attended some, well, how to put it politely, I cannot even explain to you this, after attending the Australian Command and Staff College. So the guy got commissioned in the it's just civilian guy, and who has zero fundamental military education. Unlike, for example, if you talk about Mr. Gerasimov, whose fundamental military education is Kazan tank and armor warfare officer school, higher officer school, which is the military academy. Apart from other things, including the Academy of the General Staff, he graduated. But here it is, here's the guy. And guess what? People from my blog already tell me that obviously those losers, they lurk at my blog, and already evidently the article about this dude has been changed, and he's not anymore stated as the guy with the graduation in the agriculture, but actually he is the tank expert. He's not. He wouldn't understand the first thing, how the actual, for example, ballistic computer works, or how the modern tanks operate within the net-centric environment, because he has zero STEM education. But hey, whatever, So, and he talks about that. Yeah, Putin's regime is about to fall, and so the advancement continues. So those two battalion tactical groups by Ukraine, which try to attack. And I'll explain, now we will get into the neck of the woods. They have been completely annihilated. And they, of course, they discovered this new tactical thing. Basically, what they do, because you cannot move openly in the open space, still they put the column, something like the company level column of armor. They try to run fast to some kind of their settlement or hamlet, unload whatever the personnel they have, allow this personnel to, basically try to hide there behind whatever they have there. They run this armor back, trying to get another, basically, batch of those hapless guys. By the time they get back, granted, not all of them get back, the first batch of the people they threw at some hamlet or getting prepared for whatever they were getting prepared for to attack Russians, those are dead. And so this thing continues. This is your NATO level of tactical and operational planning. And here we have to understand that what they say, the offensive and attacks, you remember, some people should remember neurolinguistics, type of science, that which turned out to be the pseudoscience, that you can literally just kind of reprogram people linguistically that they will achieve their full potential. Of course, it's all garbage. What is not garbage? In military, the terms and definitions are critical because they provide you with the appropriate, actually cognitive framework. If somebody thinks that the, commanding officer of the corvette or frigate or destroyer can, pull up, this, public announcement thing and say, hey, dudes, how about you go front and start moving the anchor for us to go somewhere? No. This is not how it works in military. Just to demonstrate to you, the military is a very structured organization in terms of the cognitive framework, and definitions matter a great deal. For example, if you serve on the ship or on anywhere in the battlefield, you have this book called Command Words. You have to know it. You cannot say something which is not per this book, because this book, the linguistics of this book is designed such a way that it elicits appropriate reactions and people act upon them, and it is reflected also in the combat manual and other tactical and operational manuals. Well, here is the example, and what people were talking about, that, oh yeah, there was an attack, and there was the offensive, even offensive, which it was not in Kursk, which of course have been defeated and completely, it's just catastrophic for armed forces of Ukraine. So, and look at this, we can go, for example, just to demonstrate to you how linguistics and semantics matters great deal in real professional militaries, and the United States definitely has professional military. United States Army is definitely not the best army in the world, but it's powerful army. There's no denial. It can still harm and make a lot of harm, but the United States is not continental warfare, but it definitely has the, TRADOC, those, training and doctrine programs. And here we have Army Doctrinal Publication 3-90, and it's called Offense and Defense. And when you look attentively at what do they say and give definition about attack, which is very, very important to understand. And here is where I will show you a demonstration, the huge difference, how Russians, who have immense, basically, experience with the ground warfare, approach it. And here's American definition from the American Army Doctrine publication, that an attack is a type of offensive operation. This is where Russian officers will be immediately throwing hands into the air and say, how could they? But this is American Army definition, that destroys or defeats enemy forces, seizes and secures terrain, or both. And here they say, attack incorporates coordinated movement supported by fires. I specifically singled out this term, movement. Of course, it's supported by fires, but look, for example, how Russians going to be given definition of the attack. First, attack is not operation. Operation is a whole other thing, and we will talk about it shortly. But this tells you different mental approach to the warfare, which matters, not just great deal, it's colossal, it's culture. Here's, for example, definition from the Russian Defense Ministry. And listen how it sounds different. Attack is the combination of the rapid maneuver of the forces or troops with the decisive impact, or with the weapons, the means of the electronic warfare at the enemy in order to defeat it. And they explain also how you conduct operations. So in the end, look how Russians approach this semantically. What is attack? Attack is merely a maneuver. And this maneuver is basically conducted in order for you to reach the position at which you can start using your weapons. In other words, attack becomes battle, or skirmish, or what have you, firefight. Attack is always a maneuver. Maneuver obviously is movement, and this is what American Doctrinal publication, for example, states. But maneuver is, of course, the fundamental military term which you have to keep in mind, which has to be embedded in you. And if you wonder how this affects you, just to give you an example, that China bought actually 2 regiments of the Su-35s. Is a state-of-the-art, 4th++ generation combat aircraft. But there was a very interesting thing. Chinese asked all avionics, all those hot buttons on those liquid crystal displays, because that's a glass cabin and all that, to be in Russian. Because when you ask her, they say, well, Russians have the proper type of the terminology and tied into the functionality, tactical functionality of the and technical functionality of the aircraft, which of course in the end platform to use weapons. And even when the definition of the Russian definition of attack, you have that there is explanation of the attack as also maneuver by submarines, and even by trajectories, by fires, by all kinds of things. It's movement, it's maneuver. And maneuver obviously is unlike movement. Here comes the difference. Maneuver is the organized motion, organized movement. And this is where it all becomes so much different culturally from the American and Russian sides that and including the fact that you obviously cannot go out there and say that, oh yeah, that's some kind of operation. Well, it's not really operation. It's tactical action. And here it is. What is maneuver? This is again Russian Defense Ministry. These are actions on the change of the position or the military order, direction of the motion and effort, and using means and accepted order of actions which are conducted in order of the successful solution of the established task during the preparation of the, for the beginning of the combat. You see, this is maneuver, and everything else in the end, maneuver, attack, and everything, these are all maneuvers, and they are done for only one purpose. To what? Unleash hell, which is of course what? Well, skirmish, firefight, battle. And then of course operations, which for example, well, attack is not operation really. I mean, it cannot be accepted as operation because it begins to circle on itself and closes the loop, and you begin to essentially use tautology, if you wish. It's like the wet water or things of this nature. You begin to go into the semantic loop, and this is just one demonstration of those things. And when you look attentively at how they approach this, what do you expect? Yeah, obviously there is a different approach. There is different understanding of war semantically, and that will translate itself obviously into culturally. And you probably remember the David Lynch's magnificent saga Dune, obviously my favorite. No, not the new Villeneuve's Dune, but Lynch's Dune is incomparable in this respect. And you remember when Paul Atreides says to Mother Gaius Helen Moahim that I can kill with the word. Well, here it is. You can kill with the word if those words are correct words. I'm not saying that American words are incorrect. I'm just saying that even this single example demonstrates to you the dramatic cultural difference in approach to the warfare as a whole and ground warfare specifically. And that is why, just to give you example, here's another example before I go about what a huge difference it all represents. Look at this. People discuss yesterday yet another those fanboys things. They pop up in my recommendations constantly because it's just inevitable when you consider what I am doing. But look at this. What went wrong? Abrams tanks fell big on Ukraine's battlefield, and that's military TV. And they discuss obviously how the Abrams, all kinds of NATO tanks are being obliterated in industrial quantities. And of course people, as you might understand, there is a lot of acerbic comments all there. But look at this. This is the semantic difference. I deliberately underlined it and highlighted in yellow. NATO and US fought third-tier opponents for the last 80 years with total air superiority and was never tested against a near-peer military power. Well, while generally it is correct, this whatever the name of this guy, he is correct in general conclusion. But the point is, near peer, Americans are not a peer to Russian military power. They are themselves near peer because basically, and I want to repeat it again and again, I will repeat it again. You can invite anybody to talk to me about this. United States lost the arms race. It's not in the same league as actual combat tested and outstanding, essentially, Russian army, which now, well, getting itself into the operational expanse, operational space. And then, well, we'll have to wait and see. But article in Washington Post, although it's filled with BS, it's already indicative about that Washington is actually sitting on the nails, if you wish. They are desperate and they are panicking. So, well, what can I say? I've been on the record since hell knows when, from the start. Wrong people they decided to fight with. And you have to, well, I cannot go back to the times of American Civil War and to tell to those Southern West Pointers that, guys, you are just not even in the same league. And you better, if you want to study Napoleon, sure, go right ahead. But you won't even reach the level of Suvorov. And so that's what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon or buy me a coffee too. That will allow me to continue to do what I'm doing. And what can I say? Have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.